Innovative game mechanics can add a whole new dimension to how players approach content. Oftentimes, they'll use their experience from past games in the genre to define their initial playstyle. Coming from other action RPG games, players may be unfamiliar with many of Wuthering Waves' nuanced combat mechanics, and as a result, misunderstand the value of many effects on characters, weapons, and equipment. Some players may fail to recognize this value, and even toss away these pieces of actual treasure away, believing that they are undeniably trash. My name is Saint Tontus, and today I'll be discussing one of the most important mechanics in the game and the weapons that heavily support it: Concerto energy, along with intro and outro skills. Concerto energy is a secondary resource for characters built from actions they make on field. Concerto energy cannot be regenerated while off field. This gameplay mechanic heavily disincentivizes a quick swap playstyle that many from Genshin Impact, where characters on a team do nothing beyond pressing 2 inputs to maximize DPS, might be familiar with. Characters must perform actions like attacking, a resonance skill, perfect dodging, or their resonance liberation to generate this energy. When a character's Concerto energy is full, a sound indicator like this will play, and then wavy, squiggly lines will appear on your standby character's portraits. Swapping into a different unit during this state will activate the on-field character's outro skill and swap to the selected character while activating that one's intro skill. This mechanic is incredibly important because of the effects that many outro and intro skills provide. Many characters will apply a buff to party members on activating their outro skill, while characters activating their intro skill will deal additional damage and potentially generate some kind of resource used in a character's kit, typically their forte bar. Essentially, the faster that you're able to generate this Concerto energy and activate these party buffs, the faster you can deal damage. While tackling content that has a time limit, you can begin to see why effective management of Concerto energy becomes extremely important for getting all of the potential rewards here. The main focus for today is on a class of 4-star weapons that have an incredibly unique effect. They regenerate Concerto energy. There are no other weapons in the game that do this. Upon using a resonance skill, the active character will generate Concerto energy based on weapon rank that has a cooldown of 20 seconds. Understanding the incredibly powerful buffs that many sub-DPS characters like Mordefi, Sanhua, and Jansen provide through their outro skill, weapons carrying this Concerto energy generating effect are some of the most powerful slot-ins for these characters. There are, however, downsides to this incredible effect. The Concerto energy weapons have some of the lowest base attacks in the game. Attack percentage boosting stats from echoes and other party members scale off the weapon's base attack as well as the characters. In comparison to other 4-star weapons and 5-star weapons, this lowered base attack will have a large impact on a sub-DPS's character's personal damage. However, the increased Concerto energy regeneration and the decreased field time for that sub-DPS character allows your main DPS, geared with as many damage boosting pieces as possible, to have the most field time. By gearing your characters with this kind of weapon, you basically transfer your sub-DPS's contribution of team damage over to your main DPS. The Concerto energy weapon's baseline effect isn't the only way that they smooth out team rotations. By providing energy regeneration percentage as a main stat, these weapons dramatically decrease the time it takes to have enough energy for a resonance liberation. Remember what I said before regarding how Concerto energy is built? More resonance liberation casts will generate more Concerto energy as a result. The end result is an incredible amount of flexibility in team rotations. Resonance Liberation can fill close to 1/4 of the Concerto bar on its own, casting these abilities at certain Concerto energy thresholds, and timing these interactions around openings within the enemy's moveset will give your DPS the most uptime possible with every buff possible. The only caveat with this increased flexibility is increased complexity. Many outro skill buffs will only affect the switched in party member. It's incredibly easy to fumble over your hotkeys and accidentally swap to Verena and give her Mortefy's buff, rather than applying it to Gian. In these situations, it's probably the best decision to reset. Similarly, it's incredibly easy to underestimate how quickly you'll build up your Resonance Liberation and overcap on Concerto energy before performing an outro skill, resulting in wasted buff uptime and lowered team DPS. In the case of a team like Verena, Mortefy, and Gian, the proper order of outro skills should be Verena's outro skill, which then applies a team-wide damage buff, into Mortefy's outro skill, which provides a heavy attack damage buff, onto an on-fielded Gian, who immediately echo cancels the Gorilla Echo after his intro skill, and then casts his Resolve Enhanced ultimate. It can be easy to mess this up. The best way to counteract these issues is to, well, practice. Wuthering Waves is not an easy game at the highest level of content. Enemies hit extremely hard. They also employ frustrating anti-grouping mechanics, and have a huge amount of health. Combine all these factors with a time limit, and the margin for error in gameplay can become very thin. The best way to overcome these issues is to learn your team. Learn the nuanced mechanics of characters that speed up rotation times, like dodge canceling Verena's charged attack, or managing Gian's resolve expenditure on his skill. Understanding all of the tools available at your disposal is the best way to maximizing the potential of your characters and teams. Since this guide primarily focuses on the role of the sub DPS on a team, it would be negligent not to mention the best sub DPS echo set in the game. Moonlit Clouds is an incredible echo set that synergizes fantastically with the aforementioned Concerto energy weapons. This echo set provides energy regeneration with a 2-piece and a massive 22.5% attack buff to the swapped-in character when an outro skill is used. The Overlord and Calamity class echoes that carry this Sonata effect are incredibly powerful as well. If you're running a hyper carry like Gian or Calcharo, I highly recommend that both of these echoes find a slot on your teams. The Bell Turtle Echo both reduces the damage your on-field characters take, while also increasing their outgoing damage. The Impermanence Heron, on the other hand, applies a similar buff to Moonlit Cloud's 5-set buff, also increasing the attack of the swapped-in unit. With these individual echoes and the echo set in mind, the value of coordinated team rotations and intentional usage of Concerto energy grows even more. A single sub DPS equipped with a Heron and a 5-piece Moonlit Cloud set can have an unbelievable effect on your team's overall DPS. The increase may be so large that you can easily take down level 80 enemies in the Tower of Adversity with a severely underleveled team. There was absolutely no way I was 3-starring this floor without the help of Mortefy. Hopefully, this overview was helpful in highlighting some of the most powerful weapons in the game. It's important to note that these weapons will primarily be found on the standard character and weapon banner, unless rated up on a limited weapon banner. While Gian's weapon banner is still active, players have a higher chance of pulling variation. Keeping an eye out on future weapon banners and pulling a copy of these weapons for a sub DPS character is a great way to build up your arsenal and open up your options in the endgame. So with that, here is a quick summary on the key points in the guide. First, Concerto energy can provide massive buffs across a team through intro and outro skills. Second is that Concerto energy can only be generated on field. Third is that weapons with the Ceaseless Aria named passive generate additional Concerto energy. Fourth is that the faster you build Concerto energy, the more main DPS uptime you have. Fifth is that intro and outro skills must be performed in the correct order to maximize team DPS. Sixth is that the Moonlit Clouds echo set and its 4 cost echoes should be on almost all of your teams. They're just that powerful. Seventh is that the best 4-star weapons in the game, at this point in the game, are very hard to acquire. You are almost entirely up to RNG at this point to get anything beyond variation. In conclusion, Wuthering Waves is a very complex and nuanced game, with many dynamics still undiscovered. I'm slowly inching my way closer and closer to Tower of Adversity's Hazard Zone completion, so I wanted to take the opportunity to share how I've made progress on a budget account. With that, best of luck on your future pulls and rolls. Don't salvage these weapons. Peace out, Rovers.